and let's just have a great conversation. I am here today with John Bongiorno, the President of WorldServe International since 1999. WorldServe's mission is to bring clean water for Africa, alleviating suffering with solar powered water projects. I'm so excited to have you on the show here today, John.
Thanks, Justin. It's great to be here and just want to express our appreciation for all you've done personally to help provide clean water to people on the continent of Africa and now here in the United States of America among our indigenous people of the Navajo tribe. We're right now involved with multiple projects helping the Navajo access clean water as well, even here in the United States of America.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and start there. Tell us what's going on with the indigenous people here in the United States.
Well, first of all, I think everybody is aware that indigenous people have suffered a tremendous amount of social injustice over the years. We know the history of our nation and its sordid past in many ways. And the Navajos have not escaped that. They're actually one of the larger tribes, and they have a terrible problem accessing clean water. They're on marginal grounds in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And 30% of the homes in the nation don't have access to running water or a flush toilet. They go to a chapter house to get their water. They have to pick up their water. They pay about 70 times what the rest of us Americans pay for clean water, believe it or not, in the United States of America.
Wow. And that's shocking because I mean, each November when I do my water project pull ups for Tanzania, there's so much like, yeah, wow, it's a great opportunity to help people who don't have the capacity and resources in front of them right now to have access to clean water and to take advantage of the life that comes with access to clean water. It's a crazy thought to think that's happening in the United States as well.
It is crazy. And I'm going to be honest with you, Justin, I didn't know myself. I got a call during the height of COVID from a global vice president of the world's largest water company, Veolia Suez. It was formerly in the United States of America. Suez purchased in 2017 GE's water division. And so, what has happened within the last several months now, Veolia, who was a competitor of Suez, purchased 90% of the shares of Suez, forming the world's largest water company with 230,000 employees around the world. And very interesting, I got the call and they said, "Can you do something to help the people in the Navajo Nation?" I said, "Look, I'll try." And tell me what about their needs. And they said, "Well, they don't access to clean water." I didn't know any of this, but I educated myself. I've met with the president twice, once on Zoom and once in person. Met with the vice president, and we're uh, trying to understand how this has happened and how they got passed by. But in any event, there's a great opportunity to serve them here in the United States of America. And I'm finding out as I go across the country and speak to other people that other tribes are having the same issues, like the Crow people. I was recently in Montana, and I was talking about the Navajo Nation, and a group of Crow leaders came to me after my discussion and said, "We need help too. We're having the same problem." So this is a problem in America. We can do something about it. The Navajo Nation's the size of the state of West Virginia. They suffer from food insecurity. There's only 13 grocery stores in the entire nation. Access to safe water, highest rate of adult diabetes in the nation, 25%, 1 in 4 adults suffers from some form of diabetes. So we're using water to do community gardens and to provide more access points so our own uh, neighbors, let's call them neighbors, the indigenous people, the Navajos, will have access to clean and safe water.
Yeah. John, and you say neighbors. I like the one of the people in my life suggested it's really cool that we're helping our neighbors across the waters, and now it sounds like we're helping our neighbors on our own land in our own territory. I'm curious whether it's in the United States or abroad. John, how did you get passionate about clean water?
Yeah, that's a great question because this month, July, I celebrated my 30th anniversary of my first trip to East Africa. And actually, I started in West Africa, landed in Senegal and Dakar, visited Gorée Island, which was a place where many slaves were shipped to the United States of America. And then I spent some time in the rural areas. And then I traveled across the continent to Kenya and then down to Tanzania. And I discovered everywhere that I went that water was an issue, was a problem. And so consequently, it began to ruminate. I thought about it. And then when I took over WorldServe back in 1999, I said, let's make this one of our focuses, but let's do it differently. Let's approach it as a business model. Even though we're a nonprofit or a charity, let's develop and create jobs and opportunities for Africans in the water sector. We found out there was a shortage of drilling rigs. We were able to put together a partnership with one of the largest exporters of drilling rigs headquartered in India. We brought their equipment in, we trained. Consequently, over the last 22 years, we've been able to train hundreds and hundreds of drillers. And then we saw the technology change. And I believe, Justin, that we should give people our best. And when I would see these broken down hand pumps all over Africa, I said, this is not good. This is how we got water in the 1800s. Why do we offer people in another country something that we wouldn't tolerate ourselves? If our daughters or our wives had to go every day to a water source and stand in a queue to pump water by hand, I said, what is that? So when the technology became available using solar to pump the water from the ground up into holding tanks, that's how we transition. Just like in Africa, when I first went there 30 years ago, I didn't know whether or not I was going to be able to call home, when I was going to be able to call home, because there were no cell phones back at that particular point in time. And I saw cell phones come to Africa. And I saw even in the middle of the bush now, you can go to areas that are so remote and you'll see a Maasai warrior or a tribesman or people walking around and they got a cell phone with them. So technology skipped the need to go with the older landlines. And I said, let's do the same thing in the water sector. And we pretty much, Justin, exclusively use the latest where people can, we pump the water up to holding tanks and elevated storage towers, just like you would see here in the United States of America. And then we have access points where the ladies can come and turn on the spigot and get water. Let's give people our best.
Yeah. Oh man, John, there's so many different ways. I want to take this conversation and want to ask you follow-ups, but here are a couple of things that stick out to me. The first with uh, just making it accessible for women and children, since they're primarily the ones who are fetching water. I love that you have the mindset from a leadership standpoint of if I wouldn't want that for myself or my family, then why would we do it for someone else? And we think about people in need and going all the way back to the people here in the United States. The I think it's the Crow people who said, "Hey, we need help too." So that brings up a question for me from a philanthropic standpoint. One thing I studied in senior year at Cornell College when I went to Tanzania to study economic development in rural Africa was the balance of charity and giving with teaching. And you hit on the fact that you've trained hundreds of people and mechanics and how to do so much skill to be able to be more self-sustaining. My question, John, is how do you follow this business model mindset in a way that is not toxic when it comes
Yeah,
to giving?
yeah. No, and that's a good question, Justin. And first of all, our board of directors is made up of strategic business leaders, and they have a heart to see opportunities for nationals, whether no matter what the country. We're working in 8 countries now in Africa, and we're getting requests and opportunities to come into other countries. But laws are changing, and it's harder and harder to get people to come over even if they're making, for example, emissions trips, a lot of the nonprofits are finding in Africa it's difficult to get people in, and they have what they call volunteer visas, but they're very, very careful because they don't want to see people coming in from other countries that are going to take jobs
Hmm.
that could go to their own people. In other words, if we send a building team over, and we occasionally do that, we would work with nationals to build hand in hand so we have that synergy and not actually take the place and build buildings with people volunteer laborers and not give an opportunity for local people to be engaged. I think in any business, when you get local buy-in, isn't that what you want in your business? You want local buy-in. So if you don't offer people opportunity to engage, to be part of something, you make it your project, okay? And you don't make it a community project that shows value and opportunity for other people. It's not a good model in any respect, whether it's business or whether it's charity. It just so happens that we work very closely with the communities, helping them understand that this is not our project. We're here to partner with you. And in order to do that, you have to maintain this project because we did a study with the Ohio State University Global Water Institute, and they met with the leadership in Tanzania, one country, and found out that more than 50%, over 50,000 sites where the charities had given water spots over the years, water locations, water projects, that over 50% were broken down.
Oh.
Now think about that. And we started to go and find out why are they broken down. And most of the time it comes down to simple things. People need the water, but if they never bought in, they don't understand what you're trying to accomplish. And they don't understand it's their responsibility to maintain that site, then you're going to lose. And we
Right.
don't want to do that. Donors want to make strategic investments. So the community sets a small price where everybody participates except for the widowed, the orphan, the vulnerable, the disabled. But the community knows who these people are who can't afford the water, and they're the ones that make those decisions. Our goal is to get people to buy in, to take ownership. And if you do that and you challenge people to their highest and best, not lowest and least, they'll respond.
Yeah, I love that, John. Especially giving local people, leaders, the opportunity to lead and the opportunity to be empowered, to learn skills, to maintain the project on their own. I can certainly attest to the skin in the game mentality that comes around the water initiatives that you lead, John. And also, I love being a Buckeye that World Service partnered with the Ohio State Global
Yeah.
Water Institute. I'm going to be headed to online Columbus this fall to get my master's in healthcare innovation, and it's been really cool to see that partnership grow with Ohio State and WorldServe. One question I have for you, John: there's a lot going on in the United States. There's negative news, as you can appreciate, and mass shootings that tear people's hearts apart, as well as a potential recession. I want to ask you, at mid 2022, what positives do you find on a day to day, and as you look into the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I always believe in hope. And if
Mhm.
you know me or been around me, you know that I'm a person of faith. And I believe in hope. And I believe that we, as a believer, in my case, a follower of Jesus Christ, that we need to bring hope to other people. And so, in the spite of the most turmoil and devastating circumstances, my anchor has always been my faith. And I go back to that. And there's a this passage in the Bible that says, where iniquity or evil abounds, that grace abounds that much more. And I believe that grace is the answer. And if you love people and you care about people and you show them and you follow the precepts of Jesus as I do, that you can help people, but you do it with dignity, not creating a model of dependency, but dignity. Our dependency, in my case, is on God. And I just came from Israel, and we have many partnerships in Israel. And I meet with Jewish leaders. I have a partnership with Muslim leaders in Tanzania, especially. The president is a Muslim lady, fine lady, loves people, cares about people. But we find no matter where we are, whether we're in northern Nigeria where Boko Haram is operating and we just open up offices there, that if you love people and do things with the right motives, the right heart, and do them in love, that people will respond to that. And so I believe there's always hope. I'm not going to go around with my head down and say, hey, this is a terrible world we live in. We need to do something to change the circumstances. And I think if we're people of faith, truly people of faith, that wherever we go, that light should shine and it should bring light into darkest, most difficult circumstances.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful, John. I'll be excited to re-listen to that answer you just gave. You mentioned Israel. What were you doing over there?
Yeah.
Anything exciting to share?
Yeah, very exciting. Two or three things in particular. I went to a company. You can look this up online. They're called WaterGen. They bring water from the air, and really amazing technology. They have 325 employees. I was at their corporate headquarters. They've got gardens up there, and they produce enough water from one unit to take care of the entire drinking water needs of the building. We're looking at that technology. It's a bit expensive, but we're looking at it. We want to be on the cutting edge. As I said before, we want to give people our best, right? Israel is a technology giant. And the water sector, they have the world's largest desalination plant. So we were also looking at some technology there, and we met with a company that's called Galmobile, and we are looking at purchasing the technology they have that allows them on a Polaris 1,000 cubic centimeter 4x4 vehicle to be able to get the rivers, streams, and even the ocean to desalinate water. They can treat brackish water, or they can take dirty water from a lake or from a river or from a stream or from a dam, and they can make that water absolutely pure. So that's why we were there. We were meeting with those companies, developing relationships and doing things that will really keep us on the cutting edge technologically in the area of clean water.
Wow, that is fascinating. I'll be excited to see what comes of that, John. Another thing that I was excited about listening to the previous WorldServe conference was around other areas of community development. What I get excited about, John, is that you're not just doing water projects, you're also tying in community development plans into each solar powered water initiative project. And so when I think about what your team is doing to teach the importance of irrigation, to teach kids the importance of sanitation and washing your hands so that they can teach their family members. What else am I missing that excites you?
You just reminded me that I missed one of the most important relationships that we have with a company that was founded in Israel. They're now part of a large Mexican conglomerate called Orbia, but the group is called Netafim, and they're the world's largest manufacturer of drip irrigation units. Why is that important? Because most of the water that's used in our world today is for irrigation. And drip uses about a quarter of what traditional irrigation methods use. So we can take small amounts of water, grow a lot of food. And what we're doing with Netafim out of Israel is working on a alfalfa projects where instead of cattle grazing everywhere, you can grow fodder, you can grow the food. This would be in the Navajo Nation and be in places in Africa, and you can let the cattle feed the cattle, and people don't have to try to move around because the traditional lifestyles of pastoral people or people who raise livestock for a living, they can't move around anymore. There's not the space. There's growth, population growth. So to be able to grow efficiently large amounts of food and fodder, not only for the livestock, but for them is very important. And this is where the Israelis have done. And if you've ever been to Israel, you realize they turned the desert into an oasis through smart water technology. And that's kind of where we're at, and we're looking at projects. We're putting these drip systems near water projects. We want to grow food for kids in schools where we're providing the clean water through school gardens, nutritious food. And, people want to feed their own children, Justin. I mean, I love all these programs where, we're feeding kids, feed the children, and all of these different. This is wonderful. But isn't it great if we could have local people trained using efficient use of water and be able to grow their own food for the children? I've got 5 grandkids. You might hear some of them running around. And, I don't want someone else to feed my children. I want to be able to feed them. And so if we challenge the communities, and one of the things we're looking at with Netafim is to bring multiple farmers into a 1-acre plot where we provide the water and they grow food on that plot, and a certain percentage that goes back to their children in the schools to be able to provide a school lunch program. Everybody knows that children can't learn very well on hungry stomachs. And so this is the kind of stuff we're doing. And we always say this, Justin, it all begins with water. You can't grow food without water.
Water is the foundation. I
Exactly.
I love the drip irrigation. I mean, being able to use 25% of the water, that's crucial. We're experiencing the shortage of water in the United States, and having limits on the West Coast right now, and in Arizona, where Dean Reeson, my one of my mentors and the head of Tanzania Water Fund, experiences that on a day-to-day basis. And
Yeah.
so I want to ask, as we wrap up here, John, and I can appreciate that you already answered it a little bit, hitting on love and treating people with dignity. But what does leadership mean to you?
Hmm. Well, you know, some things you learn about leadership by just watching other people. And my dad was a great leader. He's still a leader of men. He'll be 90 here in just a few weeks. And he is still looked up to. We're so thankful he's still in good health. He started a financial services group that serves the needs of the faith-based community, churches, colleges, universities. And even though my brother runs that now, he still goes to the office every day, puts in a few hours just doing what he wants to do because he still sees purpose in life. And so, I've learned a lot about leadership by watching my father, but I've been around great people. And at different times in my life, I've connected myself to other leaders. And by doing so, you learn things. Some of it's through osmosis. I will be going at the end of August with some great leaders. If I mentioned their names, you would know them. But we're taking a trip to East Africa together. And these are leaders that have great businesses, great churches. They're great people. And I learn and try to bring my leadership skills up a level all the time. We never stop learning. Leaders are learners. You've heard that before. In fact, one of my friends is John Maxwell. He is the most probably prolific writer of leadership materials of anybody in the world. In fact, that is true. I was just with John recently at an event where he was speaking to thousands of people, and he has written more about leadership than anyone. So, we need to sharpen our tools. We need to be willing to use new tools. I mean, if you want to impact people, you have got to impact the people who make decisions that impact the poor. So if you don't have good leadership skills, you'll never be able to make a tremendous impact on people. Now, there are some exceptions always. But in any event, for me, leadership it's a lifestyle. It's continuing to learn. I'll tell you where I learn a lot about leadership is I read the Bible. I started in 2012 going through the Bible at least 3 to 4 times a year, reading the entire thing through. And you read about the deficiencies of leadership, and you read about great leaders that today we still follow. Moses, Abraham, Jesus. Okay, I mean, the Apostle Paul. They were leaders. So you can learn from the lessons from them. So, because so much of leadership, really good leadership, you have to be a person of integrity, and you can learn that because honestly, we read in the news every day of some kind of a failure, moral failure, family failure, and integrity is at the very heart of leadership, and that's what we want to do, especially in a nonprofit world. We don't want to waste people's time. We don't want to waste people's money. We need to be good stewards. And we always need to be improving our skills in this particular area and learning about it. So
Absolutely. Leaders are learners. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that perspective. And the very last question that I thought of, John, that I think would be great for listeners is, what would you say to people who want to make a difference but don't know where to start?
yeah, that's really a good question. Where do you start? You know, uh, I started about what I'm doing through my own local church because we had an active program, and most churches do, whether it's Baptist, whether it's the Catholic Church and Catholic Relief Services, uh, whatever it might be. Most local churches have a program that reaches out to the nations. Why is that? In our Judeo-Christian values, and if we in biblical values, we were told to go into all the world and share the gospel, the story of Jesus Christ, and to be a blessing to the nations. That's what Abraham was. He was to be, through Abraham, all the nations were to be blessed. And so many of the great religions tie themselves back to Abraham. And so, anyways, I think you can find out a lot about the needs that are out there through your local church. You could be a city mission. You know, we need to be willing to do stuff here at home. We need to be willing to build relationships. I found out about the Navajo need through a Jewish friend of mine who called me that leads one of the largest water companies in the world. We learn from one another. And if we're observant and we have a heart to help people, we're going to see that. I found out my originally through church leadership. We would have people come in from other countries, national leaders and all that. And they would share about the needs of their communities. And we would go away saying, we can do something about it. So that's where I start. And but I think there's all around us opportunities to serve, and there's nothing like serving the needs of others. I attend a church that enlists 2,000 volunteers every year to go to the schools in July and do a day of service at like 4 schools. Can you imagine 500 people going into 4 different schools? What they did, they painted buildings, they repaired things, they built playgrounds. I mean, just a massive army of people creating opportunities for other people to serve. When you serve others, you're going to grow and you're going to want to do more. That's just the way it works.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for sharing that advice. And if you don't have a local church, then you can certainly consider joining one. And if you don't want to do that, then reach out to John or myself, and we can certainly help you find an opportunity that aligns with your heart and how
Yeah.
you want to help people.
Well, Justin, let me say one more thing is I want to give special thanks to you and the things that you do to create money for the need of clean water and other things. And of course, your relationship with Dean Reeson, an outstanding businessman. If you look at Dean's background, incredible person with a great heart. That guy has traveled to over 75 villages in Africa, personally surveyed those villages and said, you know what, we can solve the water crisis in this one region. It's called Singida. And that guy has done it. He continues to do it. He inspires people like yourself. So we need to salute guys like Dean Reeson, his friends, and we salute you for your work. Everyone of those pull-ups or whatever it is you're doing, and you're in great shape. You're pulling other people up too, and that's a great thing. So thank you for what you're doing, Justin. And I pray that your podcast continues to grow because you're the kind of person that people need to listen to.
Mm. Thank you, John, and a special thank you to Dean Reeson as well for his leadership. John, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'll put some notes in the show notes if you want to reach out to John or myself. We would love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Justin. God bless, and you keep up the great work that you're doing out there.
Thanks, John. God bless you too.